Hi, and welcome to Music Teacher Tip number 22. So I am Jennifer with Music Educator Resources, and this is the third part of a series with talking about lesson evaluations and what I do with my students when they are wanting to start lessons. And this is what I do during our introductory lesson before they start lessons to see if we're a good match. So part 3 is talking about transfer students and how I evaluate transfer students. And we start off very similar to how I would evaluate my new beginners and my new students that haven't had lessons before, but I am watching a little bit differently because transfers have had lessons before. So I'm kind of seeing especially what they already know and what maybe we need to work on a little bit more. I make sure this evaluation is very positive. If I see any concerns, I never diss the teacher because I have learned that it's not always the teacher's fault. Sometimes there's just not something there with a student, and maybe the teacher was struggling with that student as well. And so it's really important to not judge prior students or prior teachers too much, or be careful with that, because really we shouldn't judge them at all. But be very careful when you catch yourself judging, because a lot of times we just don't know the whole story, and that teacher might really be working on something with the student and they're just not getting it. So I just try to keep in mind that this is what I need to work on them with if I see some red flags as far as that goes. Okay, so the first thing I do is, like I do with all the ones I interview, is we start off with clapbacks. It's just a nice way to just get started with the evaluation. It's pretty easy and nothing to be nervous about. And I always tell my students right away, like the ones that come with me, I guess they're not my students yet, but I always tell them there's nothing to be nervous about. This just helps me kind of see where you are, what you know, what you don't know yet, maybe what we need to work on a little bit more. So there's no, don't worry about being right or wrong or anything like that. I just this helps me gauge on what we need to work on together. So we do clapbacks, and as I mentioned in the last 2 videos, that I'll explain that I'll put my hands on my lap when I'm ready for them to clap back. And I'll do it in different time signatures. 3/4, 4/4, and 6/8 are typically the different time signatures that I'll do clapbacks in. And then we'll go into our steady pulse, where I'll have them play along with a backing track or a CD, or I might even just have them simply clap along with some music. I'll have them clap with a metronome or play a note with a metronome at different tempos. This helps me just kind of gauge on if they're able to keep a steady and maintain a steady pulse. We will do some rhythm sight clapping. A great tool for that, for both sight reading, which we will also do, I'll do with them, is they have these sight reading. I don't know if you've seen these before, but I love these books. They're sight reading and rhythm cards. And so on here, they'll have like a sight reading, just real short, and then they'll have these rhythms at the bottom. So I'll just have them when we're doing the rhythm sight clapping, we'll just use these in the different books. And then okay, and pitch matching, I'll go through, do they recognize the difference between whole steps and half steps, highs and lows, ups and downs, intervals, do they recognize seconds versus thirds, fourths, octaves, and such. You don't have to do them all, just a few, just kind of see where their ear is. Visual perception, I showed this in the last video, but I'll go ahead and show it again. I use this Velcro staff where I have them go through the lines and spaces, and just first recognizing lines and spaces. If they're transfer students, they should have that down. And then I'll have them copy this side. And I won't go through that again, but if you missed the last video, the last tip, please go back and watch that one, because I go through more what I do with that. And intervals, I'll use the same pattern that I have in the stuff and just have them name the intervals. So, you know, I'll ask, okay, what interval is these two? What interval is this? What interval is that? You know, that kind of thing. So I'll have them name the interval. And that helps me even know if they know what intervals are, because sometimes they don't. And we'll go through improvisation. I usually save the improvisation for the very end of the lesson because I like to end with the improvisation. It's just a fun way to do it. And I always do a black key improvisation. And so I talk a little bit more of what I'm looking for when we do the improvisation, what I'm kind of watching for in the last couple videos. So be sure to watch those. Then we will go through a couple pieces. So I always tell transfer parents when they come to the introduction lesson, before they come, I always say, I want your student, or I want your child to prepare 2 pieces for me. I want one of the pieces to be a favorite piece that they love to play. And the other piece, I want them to be not a finished piece, something that still needs some work, and it's not fully learned, it's not passed off or anything. Because I want them to share something that they love to play. I think that's really important. And that one, I don't, because it's a favorite, I don't say too much about it. If there's something just a little tip, I might add a little tip to, you know, maybe sweeten it up a little bit more that might benefit them. But if it's something that they're really excited to show you, I kind of leave that one a little bit alone. But the one that's unfinished, that hasn't been passed off, that one I'll do a little bit more teaching with. So I'll give some input on that and have them work on a little bit of areas. So kind of like a quick little master class, just 5 minutes long, just to maybe choose a couple things to work on that they can take home right away and adjust and practice with it. And then I use their music for theory to see how much they know with their theory. So if, you know, I might point out a few notes and say, what note is this? What note is that? That kind of thing. Or I might say, what key is this piece in? If it has a couple sharps or something. If the piece doesn't have any sharps or flats, but I know that they have had some, I might turn to an old piece that they've played that has a different key signature and ask that question. I'll ask them if they've learned scales and what scales they've learned, have them play me a scale, if they've learned any chords, things like that. And then I'll have them do some sight reading and kind of gauge on where they are in their sight reading as well. I do like to use the Piano Safari for that, but I also like to use Piano Maestro. I also like to use just different sight reading books that I might have, or an easier piece that would be in a sight reading level for them, just to kind of gauge their sight reading ability and kind of how they go about it when they sight read. And then I go through, you know, during this whole process, I'm paying attention to how well the child is listening to me, the attention to their parent, kind of their vibe, the parent-student vibe. It's always interesting to kind of see that vibe. And then the parent's attention to the child. Are they getting a little too involved in your evaluation? Are they making excuses for the child? Are they, you know, it's fine for them to get involved because I ask questions during the evaluation. Do you know if they've learned this or that? Because if the student's not responding in a way that I would have thought they would have responded, I might ask the parents, do you happen to know if they've learned this yet or something? And sometimes they'll know and sometimes they won't. But so I don't mind asking parents and I don't mind them getting a little bit involved, but when they get involved in a negative way, that's where I might have some concerns. And then, of course, I'll ask, do they wear glasses? Do they need them when they play the piano? So I'll have students that will forget their glasses when they come to lessons. And then hearing, how's their hearing, or anything else that I might need to be concerned about. and we'll go through, I'll review the policy and how I do lessons and with my music lab and all that kind of stuff. So that's all the introductory lesson stuff, but the evaluation is so important to me. It just really helps me know what to look for when I am listening to their pieces, especially the piece that I want to give a little bit more input on. I'm watching their technique, I'm watching their fingering, their rhythm. Are they noticing and playing their dynamics? How's their musicality? How well do they respond to my instruction when I give them any kind of instruction or tip or anything? Are they able to respond to it well? Are they able to apply it immediately, or does it take them a little bit of time? So things like that. Transfers, I love transfers actually. They're not easy all the time, but they're fun, and like I said, I try not to judge too much from the previous teacher as far as the teaching itself, because you just don't know until you actually start working with the student, and all of a sudden some of those light bulb moments come in and say, that's why, maybe, what's going on. And if you want the lesson evaluation forms, they are available in my store. I have one for transfers, new beginners, and early childhood students. This helps me just keep on track, and I'm able to just jot things down really quick, and it just, it's nice and easy. I love having them there. All right, I hope these helped, and if you missed the prior to teaching tips, be sure to go back and watch them. I go through the early childhood teaching tip in teaching number 20. I go through just normal new students in teaching 21, or music teacher tip 21, and then of course this is music teacher tip 22. All right, happy teaching. Bye.